Hi everyone, welcome back to the podcast. Today we're joined by a very amazing guest, Ari, who is currently building Merch Club, Bagel Fund, and so many amazing things. And he also does photography on the side as well. Ari, let's get started with firstly kind of meeting Julian Weisser and working with OnDeck. So, how did that opportunity kind of come about? Like, Julian is kind of known in the industry, like very known in the industry for being a helpful person for people that are wanting to start startups, and OnDeck is also doing amazing jobs. So, like, how did you kind of get involved in Merch Club? Like, yeah, just would love to know your story regarding that.
Oh man. Um, yeah, so it was about like a year and a half ago, maybe a little more. And I was still in high school. I was still building things every spare moment of my day. I shouldn't say full time, but it felt pretty full time. Unfortunately, school was definitely sort of taking a back seat on and off during that time period. And like many of the things that I've come to be very grateful for in the past few years, meeting Julian came through Twitter. I was posting about a launch I had done for a community I was running back then called Builder Group, which was a community supporting Gen Z founders, developers, designers, and he saw it. Sent me a message just congratulating me on the launch, and yeah, I mean, ever since then, when I'd be working on something that I was maybe having some trouble on, or could really use a second opinion on, or something like that, he would always be around to, hop on a call and sort of like work through it. And I just found that to be like incredibly useful. Very few people on the planet have I met that not only were so generous with their time. Obviously, I was careful not to waste it, and I was careful to always have a clear purpose for wanting to have the call and stuff like that. But also just having such great feedback and such great thoughts on like everything that I was doing. And so long before I ever started working for him, I had a lot of respect for him and just like how he thought. And yeah, he was a huge help to what I was doing with Build a Group and then later Ultra Race.
Amazing. It's great to see how like the internet kind of enable you to meet somebody so helpful and so like amazing to hear like how Julian has impacted your life and how he's helped you as well, given you feedback. And I think he has this very cool like newsletter he runs. I don't know if he's doing that anymore, called Founders with Text. And that was actually a very valuable newsletter. And I found out that newsletter and I just started reading it and absorbing the information, and like I found out from there that this person is like very helpful and he's somebody that you want to kind of have in your corner. Let's kind of get into like what was the genesis behind Builder Group. So you mentioned a bit like about Builder Group, but like what was the genesis behind it? Like, is it still a community that's active today? Like, yeah, just would love your thoughts on like how you built up that community from the ground up.
Yeah. Um, yeah, so I mean, Build a Group was created, let's see, very early, 2021, I think, and it was, like peak pandemic times. Everyone was locked up inside. I was just sort of starting to discover like how much I wanted to build startups and work in tech, and I knew no one. I knew like not a single soul that worked at a company with less than like 500 people. So I had no idea what I was doing, and like many teenagers, at the time I was on Discord all day, um, and I ran into a few other teenagers who I think were sort of at similar points in their trajectories, um, who wanted to start a community of people in tech. Those teenagers were Barakat, Ariman, and Tejas. Um, to this day, I've only met one of them in person, and but I'm still good friends and with them, and Yeah, it started very simple. It was online hackathons for young builders, where we would partner up with, companies and startups to supply funds and prizes to winners. And in exchange, these people had this Discord server where they could meet other, young software engineers, meet other young people building companies. And sometimes, like, there were really, really talented people that were joining this community because they knew that, oh, like, maybe I do have more experience, maybe I could lend some help. Um, and so it really expanded from there. From the hackathons, we ended up growing to over 1 million messages sent by members in the first 12 months. We went on to host, uh, over, we ended up, I think, giving like over $10,000 in hackathon prizes. We had a podcast similar to this one. We, created educational content, all sorts of stuff. So um, today, Build Group is looks very different from what it was back then. We tried to look at it through the lens of starting an actual startup, and I think that was an amazing learning experience. It didn't end up like succeeding, I don't think. So while like Builder Group still exists and anyone can join the Discord, and frankly, like a good amount of people send messages in there every day, it's nothing like what it was back then. Um, Neither myself or my other co-founders are actively running it, so it exists. All of the content that we put out for it is still available, but yeah, it's kind of, unfortunately, it's, at least for now, it's sort of in the rearview mirror.
Yeah, actually, that's amazing to hear, like the genesis of like Build a Group and like how you started the idea and like how you kind of even had to like maybe sunset the idea for some time. And it's interesting like the journey and all that. And so you were mentioning something about like you didn't know anyone in startups kind of like before you joined on deck, and so like I think it would be a very curious topic for like folks in the audience to know like how exactly did you go about building a network in startups. And I think that would be a super interesting like idea and super interesting thing to get your take on as well.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, I mean, I definitely made like a ton of mistakes along the way. This advice, I should make it clear, is coming with two, at best, 3 years of hindsight, but I'm still like very young, and I'm still, probably not the best at, I'm not going to be the best resource for this. But my advice, like, I guess if you are, 13, 14, 15, 16, and getting started like I was, is honestly just to like be genuine. Just be genuinely yourself. Don't like fall into this idea that you have to act like so like a grown up. I think people like want to help you because they know that you are just starting out, and that's a huge advantage that you have. Um, that said, there are some things that you can really, really take away from how adults act and how adults think about things, or at least smart adults, because we all know there are lots of adults that act just like kids. Um, and one of those things are really just like valuing time and understanding incentives. So the first component of that is like, if you're reaching out to someone and you want to hop on a call with them, or you want to just, run something by them and see what they think, like make it very, very clear what you're wanting and try and say it as succinctly as possible. And the second part of that is understanding, incentives, meaning like if you're building a competitor to what they're building, and you want to know how they built what they're building, um, it's probably going to be a little more difficult to get on that call compared to if, they know they'll look good for helping a younger person. They are curious to see what you're up to. They want to help. Those are all positive incentives. So just thinking about that, obviously no one has a crystal ball, but just thinking about that, I think, was a huge help. And yeah, and Twitter, honestly, just like get on Twitter. If you're not on Twitter, get on Twitter. Twitter is like everything. If you're in tech, if you're in startups, if you're in software, I genuinely don't believe there is any better place to be on the internet than Twitter. So yeah.
Yeah, it was super cool to hear your perspective, and I especially loved your points on like being genuine and also that positive incentive kind of concept. Never heard of that before. So yeah, super interesting to hear your take on that. Now let's kind of dive into your current work at Merge Club. So what exactly is this new initiative, and like what? How can people support the amazing work you guys are doing over there to maybe follow the podcast? Like yeah, just if you could just share a few nuggets on that, that would be great as well.
Yeah, totally. So Merge Club is something that I'm working on with Julian at ODF, and it's a community of microgrant recipients working on really big ideas. Something that both Julian and I have seen in the past, honestly, is just that, we'll be in a room with two grant recipients, maybe from like the same program, given the grant maybe a week or a month apart, and they'll have no idea who each other are. They won't have met each other. They won't have heard of what they're working on. Um, and to us, that was kind of crazy, especially because sort of the demographic for microgrants specifically is very, very young, ambitious, and talented. All pretty cool attributes. And because in many ways it's a precursor to venture capital. This is completely non-dilutive. So competition can sometimes for these grants be relatively high with programs like Emergent Ventures, and to a certain extent 1517. So you have to be working on something cool, and you have to be at the point where you're early on enough in your sort of story to warrant a no strings attached check. And so, yeah, I mean, the core of this is like we wanted to create a community of people, of these people, people who have received microgrants, because we believe like there's just huge overlap in interest, in talent and skill set, and I think there is. The community is extremely technical. The community is extremely early stage, and there's just like a ton of opportunity to make new friends that are interested in a lot of the same things that you are. And so that's sort of where Merge Club is right now. We also give grants through Merge Club, from 50 to $1,000. Only requirement is that you can prove that you have financial need. So obviously your parents can't fund this. You can't fund this with some sort of savings you have. Um, and yeah, as you said, we also do a podcast with community members, which is really awesome in a way because oftentimes this is probably the first like sort of record, the first podcast episode ever with the person. And so they're up to all this really cool stuff now, at age 15 or age 17. Like who knows what they'll be doing later down the line. So it's cool to sort of like have this definitive podcast episode of what they're thinking about at this point in time. So yeah, that's just like a brief sort of overview of what we're doing at Merge.
Yeah, I think it's super cool what you guys are doing at Merge, and I've kind of followed the journey of like Merge Club for like a few weeks now, and it's just amazing to see like how you're just constantly shipping out episodes and constantly connecting with all these amazing people, like amazingly talented young builders, and yeah, it's just amazing to see the progress and the work that you guys have been doing over there. So let's get into the one thing that I want to get into is like Bagel Fund. So, like, what are the parallels kind of between Merge Club, Bagel Fund? Are they connected in some way? And like, in terms of like the work that you're doing there, and like, yeah, just like if you could share like any tips also for people applying to Bagel Fund or any of these other micro grant programs out there, like what could they do to, I don't know, position themselves, or like, I don't know, how could they do this differently? I guess is what I wanted to say.
Yeah, great question. So I'll answer the first part of that, which is working on Merge. I'm like so focused day in day out on grants that at a certain point I just can't stop thinking about grants. And so I guess I need another outlet to a certain extent. So similar to how Merge Club gives out grants, Bagel Fund also gives out grants. Granted, pun intended. It's like half the check size, so we give between 100 and 500 bucks, and it's also no strings attached, no future right to invest, all of the same details that the merge grant offers. Um, but the difference is that it's run by my friends and I. So it's we fund it ourselves. We make monthly contributions. We accept donations. It's a 501(c)(3) registered nonprofit, so all donations are tax deductible. And we give between 2 and 4 grants per month to like really young builders. And it's been like awesome to just be able to like even give 2 or 3 more grants a month through that. And I think at the end of the day there is like a really strong connection because both of these things that I'm working on are effectively working toward the same mission of getting more non-dilutive capital in the hands of really really ambitious young people. Um, and so far, like honestly, we're seeing some amazing outcomes. Actually in ODF, we had a Bagel Fund recipient get accepted to that for our last cohort. For those who don't know, ODF is like a 1 week long fellowship program in San Francisco for early stage founders. And yeah, so they are connected. And as far as like what applicants can do to at least cross like the quality bar that we're really looking for before we can even begin to think about the idea. Um, I think the first thing that people really overlook and sort of is underrated is the budget description. Um, it's paramount that budgets are like real budgets. So what we see a lot of the time is this sort of psychological thing where people need to like inflate the budget request to meet the maximum check, range. And sometimes we do give the maximum amount, but what we like to see, not only for our own bank account, also for how scrappy the applicant is like, are they really thinking about the bare minimum they need to make this project a success? Um, and so, instead of like rounding up on certain parts of the budget, like, $50 for server hosting, or $150 for, parts, in air quotes, like really understanding like exactly what they need to make this project a reality, getting down to like the cent, or obviously that maybe that's the extreme, but the dollar value of what that product is, including shipping, and putting that in. And if you're showing us exactly what you need, that's what we want. So what we don't want to see, for example, is $100 for quote unquote design. Why, like, from my perspective, like, why do you need $100 for design? We have Canva, that's free. You can do a lot in Canva or Figma. So I think just specific budget asks. That's the first part. And aside from that, is like, you know, make sure that you're applying to the grant because you need it. A lot of people will apply and, will check out their LinkedIn profile or their Twitter, and it'll say, like software engineer at like Google. And I'm like, okay, you're you're making like triple what we all make combined. So why do you need $500 from us? So obviously that's an extreme example. We don't get tons of applications from software engineers at Google, but a lot of times the point is that I think some people don't really need the 500 to $1,000 that we can provide, and so we want that money to be making the biggest impact possible. And so that's something that we're thinking about. That kind of goes back to like the incentives piece of this that we were talking about earlier. Just sort of thinking about how we're thinking about evaluating people and making sure that, with the very, very limited money that we have, like we're just making as big an impact as we can. And outside of that, honestly, there's like a tweet that Alexa, one of the Bagel Fund team members, put out. You can definitely just find it on her profile. It's like Alexa came in with a K. And she just runs through like exactly what we love and don't love to see with applications. And if you have like specific questions, you can always email me. So it's just my full name at gmail.com, and I'm always happy to run through. It's very transparent. Nothing is hidden. But these are some of the key things.
It's incredible to see kind of how interconnected those two things that you're working on currently are. And the impact as well of giving these grants. And yeah, it's just amazing that what you folks are doing with Bagel Fund and also Merch Club. So let's get into the last question of the day, which is like your life's work. So just talk us through, like, I know like you also like young as well, but maybe you have found your life's work. So what is it exactly that like excites you, and like, yeah, if you could just share a bit on that front, and then we'll end the convo there.
Hmm. Oh boy. Yeah, that's a big question to end off on. Yeah, I think it would be as much as I feel like it could be. I think it would be foolish to say that I've already found my life's work. Um, I should really stress that it could be, because I really do like so enjoy this. And in many ways, I feel like I've been pulling on the same thread for the past, 4 years since starting Build a Group, um, as I am now with the grants, because both are working to support, young people building things. Um, that said, obviously, I understand. Like, I'm 19. I don't have like all of the perspective one can have, to say the least. So, I guess just like the general direction, or how I think about sort of my life's work in general is just that I really want to spend my time one of two ways, and I think it'll be productive. The first is helping people build companies, and the second is building my own companies. I have yet to, build a company that is successful, bringing in strong revenue, being self-sustainable. The most I ever uh, achieved that was when I was 15 and I started a community agency that brought in like $300 a month. I felt like a big shot. I was walking those streets proud. But yeah, obviously, I know that there are like such crazy heights to reach. Just building impactful products, and building teams, and that's all stuff that like just innately like just interests me and fascinates me. And so I think I can learn how to do that better if I spend my time helping people how to, you know, helping people to start their companies. Um, and eventually, yeah, I wanna go out and strike out on my own. So I don't know what specifically that's going to be, but I look forward to it. And in the meantime, really, really happy to be doing this.
Yeah, best of luck for Merch Club and all your other aspirations and dreams, I guess. And yeah, if you could share like how the audience can get in touch, like anything you want to share, like now's your stage.
All right, you got it. Yeah, so I mean, every way that you can contact me is on my website. So it's just aridutilh.com. My name is probably in the title, so just make sure you get the spelling there. And as far like honestly, if you're looking to apply for grants, you can either apply for one that I'm reviewing through Merge Club or Bagel Fund, or if you need more, we can also really help with that. We have a grant guide for people that we've created at Merge, which contains like all of the grant programs and fellowship programs that we think are the best ones. We share information, reviews from people who've received the grants. You can always speak with recipients of each of the programs that we have on the guide in the Discord server, and that's just merge.club/guide. And so there's tons of information on there that could be useful. And yeah, I mean, never hesitate to reach out.
For sure, for sure. I think a bunch of young folks will hopefully tune into this episode today, and they'll be inspired by what you're building and how you've kind of had this amazing journey from Builder Group to now Merch Club and Bagel Fun, and hopefully starting your own company in the future. So, honor and pleasure to host you on the podcast today. And yeah,